Within the last few weeks, people kept sharing with me about sudden death of their loved ones. Also, wonderful friend of mine, a Buddhist nun. Her name was Anam Thubten. She passed away. Perhaps some of you know who she is. She was a wonderful human being with a lot of hardships in her life. She even cooked for many of us in the past and wrote lovely poems that she shared with me. Also, another person passed away not a very long time ago, a young person. All these wonderful souls are going away from this world. One of them is very young. We will not talk about all the detailed stories about how they went away from this world. And therefore, it feels this is quite an important time to talk about grief, compassion, remembrance, and also reincarnation, karma. I've been teaching in the West for a very long time by now. As a Buddhist teacher, that was my training. That's all I did in my life, learning and practicing Buddhism. That was the gift that I shared with the world. And we all have a gift to share with the world. Some of you are really amazing musicians here. You know that you loved playing music. You poured your heart into that art. You practiced hours, many days and months, learning how to play guitar or another musical instruments. And then you, again, perhaps a mastery over them, and you played the musical instruments, you sing so many times, and you basically brought lots of joy to hearts of so many people. And then some of you might have a different gift in the world. It doesn't have to be a spiritual teacher or musician to have a gift and to offer that to the world. Every human being has a gift. Every skill you have, every work you're doing is actually a gift to the world, to the humanity. And that's how we exist together as this wonderful human family, little bit of dysfunctional society, big, wonderful, dysfunctional family. We call it the human society. If we don't have a gift, if we don't share our gift with each other, we won't exist as actually this large family. And therefore, my gift in this life, or my vocation in this life, was to share Buddhism. That's all I did. I actually didn't go to high school or college and get degree and to get different job. And sometimes I had this kind of fleeting temptation by thinking that maybe I should have taken different path. But I'm already here. The journey has been quite interesting. Then I came to the West as basically a Buddhist practitioner, and then some Tibetan lamas, teachers invited me to teach. I had some roles back in Tibet. As the time went by, I learned that it's very interesting to teach Buddhism in the West. It's a totally different culture. And my intention was trying to make Buddhism more accessible and also to almost distill or extricate the aspect of Buddhism that would resonate with Westerners and especially Americans, by hoping that these beautiful Buddhist teachings and practices will help in the West to alleviate their suffering and to find joy and the meaning in their life, and to learn how to develop love and courage. Not just me, many wonderful Buddhist teachers have been doing that. But one thing I've been learning is that West is a totally different culture. It's not like being in Tibet, where you can basically teach the whole doctrine of Buddhism. And then here, as time goes by, personally I find it's almost impossible to teach the whole doctrine of Buddhism, just teach what resonates with people. And that's totally okay too. But the Buddha himself predicted that someday the Buddhism as a tradition will die. And that is already happening right now. As a tradition, it is dying, even though its form might continue in some cultures, like in Asian cultures, but its whole doctrine eventually will dissolve. And this is a prediction made by Buddha himself. You'll find these predictions even in the sutras. And then another very important part of Buddhism is actually reincarnation. Some people have very difficulty to even listen to the idea of reincarnation. I kept running into many people in my teaching tours who said that they cannot believe in reincarnation. And especially in the West, also in Asia too, people told me that they have a very hard time to believe in reincarnation. And therefore, you'll find that in the West, most Buddhist teachers don't talk about that at all as a taboo subject. All these wonderful teachers, amazing teachers who wrote many books. If you read their books, they never talk about reincarnation. Have you ever noticed that? They have been talking about love, compassion, mindfulness. And then there's even 6 lokas, 6 realms. Some Buddhist teachers in the 70s interpreted the 6 lokas, 6 realms as some kind of psychological map of human psyche, because they realize that even though there are very many people in the West who might accept the notion of reincarnation, but mostly many people would not actually understand it, or they are very skeptical about it. if you keep talking about reincarnation, some of them kind of go away from you. They think, oh, this is too much doctrine or too much religion. That's why many Dharma teachers didn't talk about it at all. If you read their books, listen to their teachings, and yet they have been teaching the Buddhism in a very wonderful way, very skillful way that really helps so many people, as well as, in some sense, changed the Western culture by aiding this precious wisdom of the East, the wisdom of the Buddhist tradition. And also in the West, there are people who believe a notion of reincarnation, but their idea of reincarnation is very different from the Buddhist idea of reincarnation, totally different. I know many people who believe reincarnation, but when you listen to them and their understanding of reincarnation is very different from the Buddhist notion of reincarnation. I'm not saying that one is right, one is wrong. I don't have the authority or omniscience to tell you which doctrine is valid and which is wrong. All I can tell you is what I believe, but I cannot really tell you, oh, this is wrong, this is right. But in the West, many people tend to believe reincarnation as if there's kind of personal self, or higher self, or Atma, or independent soul, and that is like this singular entity that goes from here to there, transmigrate from here to there, whereas in Buddhism there's no personal self. And therefore what goes from here to there is not a personal self, but the consciousness. Is consciousness self? Consciousness is not actually a personal self. Consciousness is a phenomenon that we cannot really describe perfectly in the words. There are so many things in this world that we cannot describe perfectly with the words and concepts. But the consciousness is this amazing phenomenon, and that is the foundation of the universe. If there's no consciousness, you won't be here. You see there's a awareness inside you right now, who's aware of yourself, who is aware of listening to me, and that is a consciousness. It goes from here to there. It goes from here to tomorrow. It was there yesterday, and is here. One time, somebody asked Tibetan Lama, "What is reincarnation?" He said, "Reincarnation is just a process of recycling all your bad habits." There's truth in that, because with consciousness, we kind of recycling all our habits. Otherwise, if we wake up morning, all our habits would go away. But you see, our habits continue to follow. We remember things, what happened yesterday. Then you can also see all this spiritual development taking place somewhere in your being. If you continue to practice the spiritual path, your love, your compassion begin to develop, and also we carry trauma, pain, memory, as well as all the habits. There is obviously this indescribable phenomenon element in each of us that carries, that continues our momentum, even though it's not a personal self. And then from that point of view, Buddhism teaches reincarnation as a continuation of your consciousness, not as a like personal self who goes from here to there, because there's no personal self. That's another topic that we maybe can talk about another time. And then also as an individual, especially in the West, we are all part of this democratic society, as well as that whole society is becoming more and more scientific and secular. Science is very wonderful, but science cannot explain everything. And science has a lot of limitations. Indeed, the good scientists actually say that science is very, very limited. Science cannot be the absolute narrative on describing the mystery, the beginning of our existence. Who are we? What are our mission? The whole thing. Science cannot actually describe the whole picture, the mystery. Yeah. It's wonderful, of course. We have to celebrate science. Thanks to science, science is really wonderful. It helps us to understand more and more at least the manifest dimension of our existence, the universe, and also science brought such a big revolution to the human world, technological revolution, and that diminished so many diseases and suffering. We are very thankful to the science. This is not to say science is wrong, but all I'm saying is that science is very limited in itself. Of course, we're all thankful to science. One time I had this allergic reaction to a vaccine shot, and then pain got so strong that I tried to meditate, but my meditation wasn't strong enough. The pain was much stronger than my meditation. And then I did a prayer, but somehow it didn't work. The pain continued to grow. Finally, I went to this hospital, and they gave me a powerful painkiller medicine which subdued my pain right there. So I was very thankful to the modern science at that moment. Therefore, this is actually a Buddhist doctrine that there is a reincarnation. But then in Buddhism there are two truths: there's relative truth and ultimate truth. According to relative truth, there's everything. There's reincarnation, there's law of karma, and there's everything. But in accordance with the ultimate truth, then you transcend everything. This is a little bit hard to understand. You transcend everything, the ultimate truth. And ultimate truth, you transcend law of karma. In the ultimate truth, it is said that even law of karma is illusion. In the ultimate truth, everything is illusion. I'm illusion, you're illusion. Not just law of karma. This temple is illusion. Time is illusion. Life is an illusion. Everything that we are experiencing to be true is actually illusion. Therefore, remember when we chant the Heart Sutra, there are all these negations. No attainment, no wisdom, which is a very radical proposal, this idea of no attainment. This can be very confusing because many of us, spiritual practitioners or Buddhists, have been really working hard, trying to attain something, Buddhahood or Nirvana, or enlightenment. And here, the Heart Sutra says no attainment and no wisdom. That's even radical because we are really cultivating wisdom all the time. Have you ever noticed that? Even this morning before the meditation, I invite all of you to develop this noble thought to cultivate love, compassion, wisdom, and now the Paranjana Paramita Sutras, the Heart Sutra says no wisdom. In some higher teachings, Dzogchen teachings, they even negate everything. They even transcend everything. They negate Buddhahood, they negate past and future, but they're negating not as a nihilism. Even though language sounds negation, but what they're really inviting us is to invite us to transcend everything and let us experience this, what they call ultimate truth, the ineffable. This is why many times my teachings have been very much based on the ultimate truth for some reason. I don't know why. I love ultimate truth. When I look back, all my teachings is based on the ultimate truth. Because I am from the Nyingma tradition, I was very much influenced by the Heart Sutra, the Paranjana Paramita Sutras, and also Dzogchen teachings, which pretty much transcend everything. And yet, there's also relative truth that we cannot reject. In the relative truth, there's everything. There's karma, there's reincarnation, and there is a past and a future, and there are also different lokas too, different realms. But I never really emphasized those realms in the past, these 6 different realms. Instead, I more emphasized the teachings of Vajrayana and Dzogchen, and also Pranjana Paramita, which are based on the what we call Takzik Tsamma in Tibetan. Takzik Tsamma, this is a little bit hard to translate. It means sacred outlook, sacred perception, which is this point of view through which that you see everything is sacred. The whole universe is sacred. The whole universe is a paradise. It's already Buddha field. One time there's a story about this Tibetan Lama who has been practicing meditation and all the Buddhist practice for a long time. And his intention was that he wants to awaken all beings, liberate all beings from the samsara. Samsara means the world of confusion and misery. And then, one moment he had this profound epiphany in which that he realized that, at least in experience, there are no samsara. There are no these confused sentient beings. He saw the whole world, the whole universe is a Buddha field. Every sentient being is a Buddha. Then he said, I can't find anybody to wake up now. Everyone is already enlightened. The whole universe is a paradise. I can't find the samsara anywhere. Of course, he was coming from his experience, his awakened experience that sees everything from the eye of the ultimate truth, not so much from the eye of the relative truth. That's what he was coming from. And he's true in some sense, because he was describing his own experience. And I really didn't have those kind of experiences, but I always liked those kind of ideas as a person. I'm kind of somebody who loves the ultimate truth, non-duality, emptiness, the heart of Dzogchen and Vajrayana. Even though I cannot say I experienced them, but I love those transcendent notions, even intellectually, and therefore have been emphasizing these topics, the ultimate truth, all those years, and noticeably many people liked it. I don't know whether they're understanding it or not, but many people like that idea. This is the truth. And yet, personally, as a Buddhist, and there's a reincarnation, there are all these 6 lokas, there's a law of karma. As a relative truth, this should be very quite actually discerned. There are all the subtle demarcations between relative truth and ultimate truth. And then those great Dzogchen masters, Mahamudra masters who taught the non-duality, sometimes they have been misunderstood. Like Milarepa was very misunderstood. When he talked about ultimate truth, people thought he was teaching some kind of almost like nihilism. And the Milarepa said, I'm not a nihilist. Look at my action. My action is so precise. This shows I'm not a nihilist. So even in Buddhist culture, people don't understand the ultimate truth easily. When Dzogchen masters taught ultimate truth, when they transcend even love karma, when they say you're already enlightened, you don't have to do anything. And then some people thought that these masters are rejecting love karma, which is not. They're coming from whole another point of view. And from that point of view, it's important for us to balance or to integrate both the relative truth and ultimate truth, which is beautifully depicted in the Heart Sutra when it goes, form is emptiness and emptiness is form. Today I'm talking about emptiness as a form. Until now, I feel I've been talking about this notion that form is emptiness. And so anyway, of course, you all have a choice to believe what you want to believe and not to believe what you don't want to believe. And this is very much a free society, which is very wonderful. And in some sense, as a culture, especially the West is going through some very unprecedented change in where that we are actually marrying and integrating all these different cultures and spirituality from all over the world. We are taking the aspects of all these different traditions that works with us, and we are kind of letting go of all these aspects, cultural or spiritual aspects, and that don't work with us. Just like if you go outside tonight, there are lots of streets around here. There's one street that really goes long in the city of Albany called Slano. If you walk on that street, you'll find so many restaurants. You'll find Chinese, Indian, Tibetan, Nepalese, not just Chinese, but the Sichuan restaurant, Thai restaurant, and that represents what this country is. It's a very melting pot culture in all aspects. And then you see that in many places people are practicing the yoga, which came from the Hindu tradition, but they are only practicing Hatha yoga. Maybe they are letting go of the Raja yoga, if my understanding is correct. Though some people are perhaps practicing the Raja yoga too. But usually people practice the Hatha yoga, which is more body-based yoga. And then they are adding nowadays Buddhist meditation, mindfulness. So this is how the Western culture is evolving. And nobody has the right to say this is good or this is bad. It's just evolution. And therefore, I will say all of you, if you can believe something in Buddhist tradition, that does not mean that you cannot practice Buddhism. That does not mean you cannot practice all these other beautiful, powerful Buddhist teaching and practices. You can practice any of them, whatever works with you. But as a doctrine, as a tradition, then the reincarnation is very important in the Buddhist tradition, especially regarding the relative truth. In the ultimate truth, the Buddhism transcends everything. It says everything is illusion, nothing exists. Actually, not like that. Even nothing exists is also concepts. Buddhism even transcended that, transcend existence and non-existence, all of them. Personally, I feel not just doctrine, there's a reincarnation. I cannot claim that I have a psychic prowess or know the future, past. I don't have any of those psychic prowess, but intuitively I feel there's a reincarnation. I don't have doubt about reincarnation. There's a intuitive feeling inside me about the reincarnation, past, future. And so now we lost some of our friends. I prayed for them. Did a ceremony. I prayed that wherever they are experiencing peace, clarity. Wherever they are going, we can say, oh, they're traveling somewhere without any expenses. That's good. Usually when you travel, it's expensive, isn't it? You have to buy plane ticket and then book the hotel. Free travel is good, actually. Free travel. So maybe they're traveling, and that's good too. Perhaps very inexpensive. Or we could say they are dissolved into the Supreme Source, the Dharmakaya, the primordial ground. And yet, it's not like end of everything. There's no end of everything, because there's no beginning of everything. The whole thing was illusion. And from that point of view, it's not like we can say now they don't exist anymore. That is a very much a limiting concept to say now somebody does not exist anymore. And that is a form of nihilism, like rejecting this vast, ineffable nature of reality. And then there's a grief. Let's talk about a grief today. The grief is a very human emotion. It's very healthy. If we don't know how to experience grief, then we may not know how to open heart. We may not know how to experience sympathy, sadness, love, compassion. Grief is such a precious, sweet human experience that makes us a human being, makes us who we are. Grief comes from love. When you love something or somebody, when you lose that, then the grief strikes us. The more you love something or somebody, the powerful the grief becomes when you lose it. Everybody loses somebody in this life, or everybody loses something that is very precious. Sometimes you lose something so precious without any logical reason. Other times, with a more logical or rational development of a life. Kambon Jigmet Pensok, who was most revered Lama in the Tibetan Buddhism. Lama here means Buddhist teacher in Tibetan culture. He built this giant monastery in eastern Tibet that hosts around 10,000 monks and nuns. He is considered very enlightened. If there's an enlightened person in Tibetan Buddhism, he's one of them. When he lost his sister, he was very sad, and so sad that worried some of his disciples. One of his disciples approached him and said, "You are the Kambon Jigmet Pensok," or something like that. "You are this great master. How can you be sad over loss of your sister?" These students were coming from this idea that if someone is truly awakened, very enlightened, they would not have any sadness or grief or human experiences. And then Point Richmond almost yelled at them. He said, "You don't understand the Dharma," means you don't understand the Buddhism. Buddhism is not about being stoic and not having feeling of sadness. That's not real Buddhism. If we don't allow ourselves to feel sadness, grief, then actually we are kind of shutting down the whole life. We're not allowing ourselves to live fully and to experience this very rich and complex journey called the human life. And sometimes the grief is very strong, and therefore we try to run away from that whole experience. We maybe don't know how to deal with it, or maybe our heart was very closed at some point. We didn't know how to feel grief. For example, my family, I have family here, we lost a dog many years ago. This dog died. I didn't feel any sadness. And then maybe 5 or 6 years after his death, one day I was flying on the aeroplane. This grief struck me suddenly. I remembered him and I felt this very powerful grief. For a while I wrote a little poem to him, and I said to him how much I love you. I wish that I was able to love you even more when you were alive. And if I get another dog, or we have other dog, I would try to love them even more. That was my commitment to him, even though his form was dissolved from this world. In this same way, we sometimes try to close our heart when grief is very painful. We use all kind of method, means to close our heart and not to feel that painful experience. But then, on the other hand, some people have too much grief to the extent they get really lost. They end up indulging into grief and never know how to come out of it. It becomes a root of suffering. There is this healthy way to deal with the loss, and that is to allow yourself to grieve completely, but then eventually also let go of the person or the thing that you have lost that has been very precious to you. Many years ago, this one woman who lost her son many years ago kept coming to my retreat. She lives somewhere in the south. I won't mention her name for confidential information. And then she would have an interview with me and ask me where can she find her son as a reincarnated being. She was hoping that she will run into some sake or some spiritual teacher who can tell her where her son is. But her son died many years ago, and that's all she talks about. She is totally lost and completely bogged down in that sadness, that the grief, to the extent it becomes a hindrance in her mind that basically prevents her from moving forward and to even enjoy this human existence and enjoy all the delights that life presents you And also, it becomes spiritual hindrances because it doesn't allow her to move forward and to develop courage, letting go, love. And then she would come back to my other retreat and she would ask me, now do you know where he is, or something like that. I told her that I don't have any kind of psychic prowess to tell where your son is. Maybe it's good time to let go of him completely and move on. And she would resist completely that suggestion. This is a timely invitation, all of you, to think about somebody that you have lost in your life, that you're very much attached to it, that you might be dealing with the grief after all those years. Maybe today is a very special and powerful time for all of you to look inside and see whether or not you're stuck with a grief. When you're stuck with a grief, grief is no more a grief. Grief is some kind of energetic blockage. It becomes actually suffering. Maybe this is a wonderful time for you to look inside and see if you're stuck with the grief, and then have the conscious intention to let go of the grief. Then there are other forms of grief that we don't talk so much about. When you process one grief, that's not the end of the grief in this life. It's not like that we can say, now I'm not going to have any more grief because I let go of the person I'm very attached to, who died whatever 10 years ago. And then as life continues, it will present you many, many grievers. So we can be ready how to embrace loss, separation, and then to go through more healthy and conscious grief, as we talked about. There are many forms of grievous in this life. Grieve over missed opportunity. Are you relating to it? And perhaps you all have this unspoken grief about lost opportunity, missed opportunity. You say, oh, I had this amazing chance maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 5 years ago, some great opportunity, certain career or job or whatever, but somehow I didn't make the right choice, and therefore I am very much grieving. That can happen too. Many people are actually secretly tormented by grief over missed opportunities. And then sometimes you can have a grief over not death, but over losing somebody. And maybe you have a child who seems to be very bright and who had all this amazing future in your mind. You have all this wonderful plans, future for your child. You can imagine that your child will grow up, go to whatever, one of those great universities, and have a wonderful life adventure. But then how about if you discover that your child has some kind of condition, and then you have to let go of all the vision, all the wonderful dreams you have about that child, as well as you have to let go of that version of your child completely from your consciousness. It's a form of death, even though it's not physical death. You see that there are so many forms of grief that happens in our life. Even every time when we finish a residential retreat, there's a grief. Many people actually go through grief when we finish it at the meditation retreat. That lasts usually 5 or 6 days, especially if they had a wonderful time. As you know, in the meditation retreat, everybody opens their heart eventually after struggling for 3 days. And most people tend to struggle for 3 days with the boredom, and dozing off, and going through all this pain in their joints from sitting in the cross-legged posture, and emotions rise up. All these emotions begin to pop up. Emotions that you don't experience tend to pop up. And not only that, what happens in the retreat is that your whole system go into this hypersensitive mode, and everything becomes very exaggerated in the meditation retreat. Your confusion seems bigger than ever. Your love seems more powerful than ever. Have you ever noticed that? And your sadness seems to be much stronger than ever. Your spiritual awakening seems to have a very special power or impact. Kind of really easy to get lost in your mind. It's very easy to follow the rabbit, right? The rabbit, and fall into the rabbit hole, and then sometimes you don't come out for a long time. That's what happens during the meditation retreat, and then people finally feel their walk up, they're just let go of everything, their pain, suffering, they feel they're enlightened, and they look around and see, this is my family, this is my real family. Everybody looks so just amazing, holy, wholesome. And now we have to finish this meditation retreat, we have to go back. There's this kind of grief strike, and people often, not so much anymore, but sometimes people used to cry, almost fall apart, or the grief of saying goodbye to everybody and finishing the retreat, except me, because I kind of know this is just a usual stage that we have to go through. It doesn't mean anything, so I don't have so much grief over ending the meditation retreat. Much gratitude to everyone. And then the point is not talk about to the grief, but to grieve whatever you are, whatever pain you're carrying from unprocessed grief, sadness, grief over lost loved ones or opportunity or something so precious. Let go of it. Grieve and let go of it, and then move on. And then the whole point is to open your heart and to enjoy this human life, this precious human life, and enjoy everything that life presents you. And let that spontaneous, irrational joy dance in your heart. As you were reminded to invoke that this morning, invite that spontaneous joy for no reason. Invite that, and overcome all the inner hindrances that try to take your spontaneous joy. That spontaneous joy is really who you are. That's your true nature. That is the primordial, unconditioned state of who you are. Gratitude.